Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about If Beale Street Could Talk. There's no way to come away from this film and think how great of an auteur Barry Jenkins is, and the ease of feeling of getting into this film is not one that I've seen from a lot of films. And my experience with this film is so full and so rich, and I found myself like weirdly crying on the way home, but not in a way that, like, I don't know, it's like it was just such a perfect kind of film. And Moonlight was one of those masterpieces. It's a hard film to follow up. It's almost an impossible film to follow up, regardless of the Best Picture thing. It's just a masterpiece. There's a lot of follow-ups from people this year, but none have shown me that Barry Jenkins absolutely has like the artistic achievement to give us like a full body of work that will stand the test of time. I think of the opening shot of If Beale Street Could Talk, and you see Tish and Fonnie just walking with these very beautiful colored clothing, and you see it's a New York park, there's trash there, it feels very natural. It feels more like a New York park than I've probably seen in most movies. But the point of that is to show like that they love each other, that they have a good relationship. It's almost like walking by a couple in a park and you kind of projecting like, that seems like a good couple right there. That immediately got me. And it's such a thing, such a little thing, but he's so smart about that. Whether it's when Tish tells her mother that she's pregnant and suddenly the volume in the dialogue changes ever so slightly. And then having some scenes of this that are just actors like in a classic, I wouldn't say classic Hollywood, more in like the 50s Hollywood. I thought of Kazan a lot and how theatrical, felt like a theater performance. And in some of those it did, but it also felt like I was in that room and I felt that tension. I saw this in Brooklyn, so that scene where the two families are confronting one another was very spirited, I'd say. You know, I'm like, I believe I didn't like do a count or something, but to my understanding it was like the only white guy in that theater, and seeing that with a black audience. This is a film a lot about African-American identity and African-American life in America, particularly in the 70s, as told through a novel by James Baldwin. That was interesting, but I love when a film can portray drama so well that an audience is kind of captivated by it, and that was like hearing people go like, oh shit, to certain things, and go like, yeah, you tell, you know, stuff like that. But the power of some of those scenes through, you know, more of expressionistic kind of ideas, interesting cinematography, artistic licenses that Barry Jenkins takes, it shows like he is a one-of-a-kind director. He is an auteur. He is so much of an auteur, he's one of the reasons we have that term, because the way he uses music, the way he uses cinematography, the way he uses a large ensemble, even though this film is mainly about Tish and Fonnie, and the great performances by Kiki Layne and Stephen James, who really I want to see in so many things. I thought Kiki Layne, it's mainly through her perspective, she's almost the lead character. She feels like such a, I don't mean this in like a sort of sexual thing, but like she looks very cute. She looks very like, you know, this very fragile kind of woman, very cute, very made up, very soft spoken. And what she's able to do while also not breaking that is frankly amazing. Like Kiki Layne, she is a great actress, and I hope people put her in more things, because it would be a damn shame. She's just like, I haven't seen very many actresses, anyone be able to do that while not breaking so much from that and being able to convey all those emotions. It's not an easy thing to do. Most people would go like, oh fuck it, I'm just breaking it, I don't care. And like, she doesn't do that in the whole movie. And it's kind of like, at first you think of her as a certain thing, and in a way she doesn't break that kind of portrayal that you're kind of perceiving and projecting on her, but at the same time I think she's able to use that and use that persona for her performance. It's really great. I think it's one of the best performances of the year, frankly, what she did. And this is a film that has great performances. Stephen James is kind of like almost the anchor of this film in a way, where you might not appreciate what he's doing, but through his performance and through you seeing the trauma and the reactions of what he's going through, he is kind of like one of those performances where if he wasn't in it, you'd notice it. He's like an essential building block of the whole film, but no one's going to call it out because it's maybe not as showy. But seeing him through glass, seeing how he portrays that, he's very great. This large collection of actors, you know, I know Regina King's getting the most acclaim for this, but Regina King's one of those great African-American character actors who never gets maybe the most acclaim, but she's kind of one of those actresses where I see her in so many things. I'm always like, oh cool, Regina King. Like, I always know it's going to be good because she's there. Barry Jenkins does a lot like with her femininity in certain scene in the mirror that is just really beautiful and very, what he's able to do. I mean, I think he's also very good at lighting black actors more than anyone, because he's able to use, I mean, obviously you light different skin tones differently, and he's able to do that better than anyone. Brian Henry, who primarily is from Atlanta, he is such a good actor, and I think he's becoming a reliable character actor. He gives a monologue that scared the living shit out of me. And the way he describes prison and what happened to him in the 2 years he was incarcerated, and that feeling of being locked up and not have control over your life and everything. He just did it in such a way that you could hear a pin drop in that theater, but the power that he really got with those words, it came from a sense of being scared, being worried, not sure what was going to happen to you, not sure of anything. Sometimes when I think about that monologue, it's tough, but I think what that nails down, because you don't actually go inside the prison, which I think is interesting. You go inside in terms of, like, you see Tish, see Fonny, but you don't really see much past the visitation area. In any other film, I'd understand the perspective of that, but I think that monologue was so powerful, you don't need to see anything more, because that reality hits you in the face, like someone just hit you in the face with a huge book, and it's gonna hurt for a while. You're gonna feel that for a while because of what he was able to do with that monologue. And I think a lot of If Beale Street Could Talk is the unfairness of what's happened to Black America, but because this is not just supposed to represent, it's very unique to this unique situation, obviously. One thing I realize that I think people think, like, not everyone who is incarcerated unjustly. There obviously are people who did do things that were bad and were arrested justly and all that. And look, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I do think there is very much a system that has come and destroyed lives just because they can wrap up a case and they don't care about who they destroy or whether they're actually doing what that justice system was set up to actually do. They're just kind of trying to wrap it all up to give some sort of closure that is a false sense of closure that actually doesn't help anyone and just promotes racism. But, like, very much so. And I think Beale Street gets to that because there was so much of it that I felt like the family is trying. They're trying to make sure she's pregnant. They need to band together. They need to get this to work. They need to find the money to hopefully get him out. They need to do something. And they've done everything they could. It's not like they don't give a shit. It's like they do give a shit. And no one is giving them anything. I think one of the things when we're seeing more Black directors and Black voices is we're seeing a lot of these narratives where people are going like, we tried fucking everything. It isn't fair, but this was our life. And I think hitting you with the reality of that gives you the sense of awfulness that this experience has been all this time that did not get properly reflected. And I think that's what James Baldwin was doing, and I think that's what Barry Jenkins does. Barry Jenkins, I saw an interview with him and he was like, this is the first James Baldwin novel made into a movie. And I think after the documentary, maybe there'll be more. I hope there's more. I know there's talk of more, but also his estate is rather tough, so that, in all fairness, but justifiably so, because I'd much rather a masterpiece like this come out than like a bunch of subpar James Baldwin movies. A lot of this cinematic year and a lot of what's going on in movies is showing changing voices and new perspectives. But I think with this film, it goes so much far beyond that because I found myself more compelled by the fact that it's such a beautiful film. Because it's not just about the incarceration and getting him off, it's also about the beauty of their love, of them being best friends from childhood, about them becoming husband and wife, her being pregnant, the beautifulness of their relationship. It also just feels very universal, and it also feels very 70s. I was struck by, immediately when this started, this felt like the 1970s, and in a way, in a cinematography difference, and this was shot by James Laxton, who I loved what he did with Moonlight. With If Beale Street Could Talk, I see so many films that take place in the past, and they desaturate everything, and it looks like all like, like it's the past. It doesn't look like now. Everything's desaturated, like, because I guess The Aviator did that and we all have to do that now or something, which I think even Scorsese would hate that shit. The thing with this film is I've seen 70s films restored in beautiful 4K and colors pop. There's color there. When you see them, you're like, that feels like it's now. I feel like I'm transported to then. And that's what this film did. When you desaturate it, you take yourself out of that. You're removing yourself. You're saying that is the past, but I'm I'm here now in 2019. We have evolved from that. And that's not the point of this movie. The point of this movie and this book is to be universal and realize that this is still going on. This went on before and it went on then. And it's to understand the reality of what was going on then in the 70s, but it's also to understand the reality that's going on now. And in a way that was a smarter and more empathetic cinematography choice than basically all those things they're doing, giving you a sense of remove, which they're actually not connecting to their theme. They're just picking an aesthetic choice to be, I don't know, they're just picking an aesthetic choice because they feel like it's the past, so like we should do this, I guess. It's like not a very thought out aesthetic choice whatsoever, and this was a very thoughtful one. There's so much that I'm talking a lot about emotions and actors and things like that, and that's what you expect from an awards film, but I think what makes Barry Jenkins past one of those is he's able to use things like audio and stillness and music and lower the music in certain scenes and bring the music up in certain scenes and use the cinematography for a reason. He's a director who uses all those things at his disposal. He might not do it in the most showy way or something like that, but he knows how to do it like a true maestro of cinema, and he is so eloquent and amazing at that. It's so precise in what it's doing and the story it's telling. It's certainly a political statement, but it's more than that because it's showing the humanity that is destroyed by these political actions, and he's able to do that through all these things. The music, which is by Nicholas Britell, I think that's how you say his name, who also did the music for Moonlight, it honestly felt like Elmer Bernstein through a lot of this film. It felt like I was watching Taxi Driver or a 70s film. I love the score in this. It is absolutely beautiful, and he's able to do that in a way like this almost felt like a 70s film that never happened, but it also felt like a film made by Barry Jenkins. He obviously was very influenced by 70s films. I don't know which ones in particular. I'm sure Scorsese's in there, but not to keep bringing him up. He was able to really invoke that time period quite frequently. I don't know what music. I feel like Miles Davis, but I'm not sure. There was jazz, and I'm just going to assume it's Miles Davis. It's just the most boring thing you think. I really love this movie. I love the relationship in it. I think one of the things about any relationship in a movie is you kind of have to give them a reason, as cinemagoers or audience members, a reason to fall in love with them. And there's oftentimes I did fall in love with them as a couple over and over again, and it kept cutting to that, like not losing that thread throughout the film, because this is sort of in sequence but would kind of show things from before he was incarcerated. And then there's a part where they're trying to find an apartment. There's part where they're, just hanging out with a friend. There's parts like that I really love them as a couple. And I felt like I understood their lives. I was thinking about today, or yesterday, I guess, if a film is able to kind of sell where the people live, you almost feel like you understand the geography of an apartment. That kind of helps, because if you're friends with someone and you go to their place frequently, you understand the geography of their apartment. You know where the bathroom is and the kitchen and things like that. And that might sound like a silly thing, but that familiarity adds to that essential empathy. Because guess what? You empathize with your friends. I hope you do. If you don't, that's like another thing. You should look into that. But I love this film, and I found myself kind of tearing up just because I know, saying like, yeah, life is unfair. That's basically Beale Street. But I think seeing that reality and dealing with that reality and seeing how that reality destroyed and ruined this family, and this family stepping up and trying to do something while their love can't be stopped despite all that. What Barry Jenkins is able to do with sensuality and sexuality on film is something I see very few directors able to understand, and the importance of it, the importance of it on people's relationships, and not being kind of like leering or anything like that. He's fully giving life to these characters and showing how important that is to them as people, and how important that love is and that relationship is and that sexuality is for them as people. And I think Moonlight works so well because it showed that, and I think Beale Street is just another theme within it, because you see how it's almost how the story of this is the story of Black America, and Beale Street, which he says is a street in New Orleans, the opening quote, and explains on that theory, but it's very specific and universal in the way that makes you sad, makes you cry, that this is what people had to live through. This was someone's experience and someone's life ripped apart, and realizing that the police and whomever took advantage of a situation to destroy someone just because. That's the scariest part, I think, is realizing how a system can just rip someone down just because, and they can fight and try to just take it away. If Beale Street Can Talk is just such a powerful movie, and Barry Jenkins is kind of on that great director path. I mean, he is a great director. That's unquestionable in my mind, especially after this film. He just understands the reality of people better than I think any director working today. and he understands what makes them people and their lives, and how the importance of their makeup into being who they are, and understanding the importance of all of those things. I think what makes Barry Jenkins great is he understands how a life comes together and how it makes that person who they are. Beale Street has that, and one of the things about Beale Street is he understands all the complications in that fucking situation. I'm just blown away by it, and it's almost like there's certain times I do a review and I feel like I've said everything you can really say about it, and with Beale Street I feel like it's a massive achievement in that, and frankly, both his movies I feel that way, where I feel like I could rewatch it and have more things to say about it, and I want to have more things to say about it. But I feel like it's just there, and Beale Street is that kind of a powerful achievement in cinematic filmmaking, and Barry Jenkins is one of our best current directors, unquestionably. And this film just kind of shows me he is an auteur, he has a style to him, but this is so different than Moonlight. I guess this is, one was Citizen Kane and this is his Magnificent Ambersons, you could say. This is just such an amazing achievement, and it's a film I just absolutely love in what it's doing and what it's saying about the life of this situation. That's what I think he's able to do with this, and what James Baldwin was able to do with the book that Barry Jenkins also adapted, is showing the life of the situation. All the people it affected, all the lives that it changed, all the lives that it brought into the world, and everything that it brought together, and everything that this situation touched, is kind of the importance of what makes this important, and what makes this piece important, and what makes the meaning of all this important. And that, to me, is showing a great story, and also a great storyteller, whether that be James Baldwin or Barry Jenkins. But I would say that both understand the importance of storytelling, and what it can tell the audience, and what it can tell us all. So if you have seen If Beale Street Could Talk, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to.